He wasn't defeated in battle. He was broken from within. At the peak of his power, when everything seemed under control, something unseen had already begun to spread. Quiet, patient, and deadly. A trusted man, a hidden influence, and a decision so small, no one noticed it at first. But that one decision would slowly open a door that should have never been opened. The question is, was it weakness, or was it a perfectly designed trap? Before we go further, I want you to answer this right now in the comments. What's more dangerous? An enemy you can see or someone you trust without question? Don't just watch. Be part of this story. Drop your answer in the first minute. And if you enjoy deep, powerful history like this, take a second to like and share. It really helps more people discover these stories. Also, subscribe to Islamic Conquests so you don't miss what comes next. Trust me, this story only gets deeper. The silence of the night felt heavier than usual. Inside a powerful household, a man slept, unaware that the woman beside him was not what she seemed. Outside, in the darkness, footsteps moved carefully, almost rehearsed. No noise, no hesitation. As if this had been done many times before. And in truth, it had. But what no one realized at that moment was this. This wasn't just a private betrayal. This was the beginning of something far more dangerous. Something that would soon begin to spread through the army itself. Because while the world saw strength, discipline, and unity under Sultan Salahuddin, something invisible had already started to rot from within, and the first cracks had just begun to show. Salahuddin was not like other rulers of his time. He wasn't blinded by power, nor distracted by luxury. His vision was larger, clearer. He understood something many leaders ignored, that a nation is not only defended by swords, but by its moral strength. He saw a growing problem that disturbed him deeply. Women were no longer honored the way they once were. In many places, they had been reduced to objects of trade, bought and sold openly. Wealthy elites were the main drivers behind this system. Their money fueled a dark market where dignity had no value. This wasn't just a social issue. It was a strategic weakness. Because Salahuddin believed something powerful. A society that disrespects its women weakens itself from within. Once, women had played a role in strengthening the spirit of men, standing behind them in times of struggle. But now that same influence was being twisted into distraction, indulgence, and decay, and that change had consequences. Not just moral, but military. He feared that what once gave strength to the nation was now quietly destroying it, so he began to think differently. What if women were given back their honor? What if they were no longer controlled but empowered? He even considered a bold idea, to formally include unmarried women in structured roles that supported the army. Not as symbols, but as contributors. It was a vision ahead of its time. But it was also dangerous, because the people who benefited from the old system would never allow such change easily. And the truth was, his enemies were not only outside his borders. Many of them were already inside. What no one understood at that time was just, how deep this problem had gone. Because while Salahuddin was planning to strengthen his army, someone else was already working to destroy it. And their method was not war, it was corruption. It began with something simple. A grand military gathering, a display of strength meant to inspire confidence, to unite the people, to remind them that their army was disciplined, powerful, and different from the corrupt forces they had seen before. And it worked. People were impressed, not just by the numbers, but by the behavior of the soldiers. There was order, respect, control. For the first time, many civilians began to feel something they hadn't felt in a long time: trust. But what happened next changed everything. Within days of that gathering, young men began joining the army in large numbers. Thousands signed up, bringing with them their animals, their energy, and their hope. In just 10 days, the number crossed 6,000. Training began immediately. Everything seemed perfect. But then, small things started happening. At first, no one paid attention. A missing item here, a quiet argument there, a soldier absent for a few hours at night. Nothing serious, nothing alarming. But these small cracks were not random. They were being created. And slowly they began to grow. Because behind all of this, there was a plan already in motion. A plan that didn't rely on force. It relied on human weakness. And no one, at that moment, fully understood it. But very soon they would. At first, the problems looked small, almost harmless. A missing coin, a quiet argument between two soldiers. Someone returning late to camp with a weak excuse. Nothing that looked like a threat to an army. But what happened next changed everything. Within weeks, these small incidents began to multiply. Gambling started spreading among the soldiers, first in secret, then more openly. Money was lost, then borrowed, then stolen. Fights broke out not over enemies, but over personal grudges. And with that, something far more dangerous entered the camp. No one at that moment understood what was coming. The damage had already begun. One night, 3 horses went missing. Not 1, not 2, 3. This was serious. Horses were not just animals. They were strength, speed, survival. Losing them meant something was very wrong. A full count was taken. That meant only one thing. The threat was inside. Warnings were issued. Strict orders were given. Soldiers were reminded of discipline, of fear of God, of honor. But the crimes didn't stop. They grew. Then came the night that exposed everything. A guard noticed a soldier approaching the campsite. His steps were unstable, his body swaying. Before the guard could even question him, the soldier collapsed. He was covered in blood. They rushed him inside, tried to save him, but it was too late. With his final breaths, he revealed something that froze everyone. He had killed another soldier. The body, he said, was lying in a tent not far from the camp. And then he died. That one moment shattered the illusion. This was no longer indiscipline. This was decay. A group was sent immediately to the location he described. They found the body exactly where he said it would be. But the tents were gone. No trace. No people. No belongings. Just marks in the sand showing that something had been there and removed quickly. No one at that moment understood what was coming, but the truth was already forming. The investigation revealed something disturbing. There had been nomadic camps nearby, and inside those camps were women, beautiful, charming, and extremely skilled at something far more dangerous than weapons. They created illusion. Each soldier who visited believed the same thing, that he was special, chosen, loved. Promises were made. Emotions were played with, and slowly rivalry was created. Jealousy turned into anger. Anger turned into violence. That was how the 2 soldiers ended up killing each other. But what seemed like a random tragedy was not random at all. It was designed. When the report reached Salahuddin, he understood immediately that this was not a simple moral issue. This was strategy, a very dangerous one. Because if an army loses discipline, he called for his most trusted intelligence officer and gave a direct order. Find the cause, not the symptoms, the source. At the same time, he ordered deeper observation inside the army. Because now the question was no longer what is happening. The real question was, who is behind it? But the answer to that question was not in the camp. It was inside the city, and behind walls that no one suspected. That same night, in a large respected household known for charity, wealth, and loyalty, something very different was taking place. A secret gathering, hidden from the world. Carefully planned, doors closed, voices low, and at the center of it all, a man and a woman. The woman lifted her veil, and in that moment, the truth behind everything slowly began to reveal itself. But what she said next changed the entire game. The room fell silent as the young woman lowered her veil. Every eye in that gathering turned toward her, not with admiration, but with calculation. She was not there by accident. She was the center of something carefully built, something dangerous. The old man beside her spoke first, his voice calm but cold. News had already reached the highest authority. The army's discipline was breaking. Gambling, theft, violence, it was spreading faster than expected. And now investigations had begun. That meant one thing, time was running out. But instead of fear, there was satisfaction in the room. Because this was not failure, this was progress. No one at that moment outside those walls understood what was coming. But inside, they already knew. They had taken the first step. One man, however, was not impressed. He leaned forward and spoke with irritation. 3 months and only 2 soldiers dead. That was not success. That was delay. The old man looked at him without anger. He didn't measure success in numbers. Even if 1,000 soldiers died, it would not matter. Their real target was far greater. Salahuddin. The room grew still. But the old man continued, almost as if teaching them something deeper. Killing a ruler was not as simple as they thought. Attempts had been made before, and they had failed. And even if they succeeded, another leader might rise, stronger, stricter, more dangerous. So why risk everything on one strike when you could destroy everything slowly? That was the real plan. Corrupt the army, break discipline, turn strength into weakness, make them fall, without ever attacking them directly. A quiet plan, a patient plan. And already it was working. Then the old man placed his hand gently on the woman's shoulder. "This," he said, "is our greatest success." All eyes shifted to her again. He began to explain. There were only 2 men close enough to Salahuddin to know his deepest plans. 2 men who could see what others could not. One of them was beyond reach, but the other had already been captured. Not with chains, but with something far more powerful. Trust, desire, attachment. Her name was not what she had told him, but to him, she was everything. A man in the room asked carefully, had she truly succeeded? The old man smiled, more than they could imagine. For months, she had been trained how to speak, how to appear vulnerable, how to build trust without force. She had been placed beside him at the perfect moment, during the military gathering, where guards were down and conversations were open, and it worked. The man they had targeted fell exactly as planned. He believed her story. He believed her pain. And soon, he believed her. No one at that moment understood what was coming. But the damage had already reached deeper than anyone expected. The old man described everything in detail. How she convinced him she was trapped in a forced situation. How she made him feel needed, important, trusted. How she led him into a meeting that looked like danger, but was carefully staged. Even the fight, the weapons, the threat to her life, all of it was an act. Every movement controlled. Every risk calculated. And when the moment was right, the old man stepped in, pretending to surrender her, to give her away, as if she was a gift, as if she belonged to him now. And in that moment, the trap was complete. But what happened next changed everything. The old man revealed something even more dangerous. She had done more than gain his trust. She had changed him. The man who had never touched alcohol now drank heavily. The man known for discipline now ignored his duties. The man trusted with secrets was now sharing them without realizing it, not out of betrayal, but out of blindness. That was the real danger, because he still believed he was loyal. And that made him the perfect tool. The woman spoke then, calm, confident. She explained how easily information came to her, plans, movements, strategies, even future campaigns. He trusted her completely. He saw her as someone devoted to faith, to the cause, to sacrifice. He never questioned her. He never doubted her. And that was why he had already lost. The old man continued. The army was being prepared for something big, a major campaign. Half the forces would remain, the rest would march under direct command. But before any war could begin, the army itself had to be weakened. And that was already happening. Gambling introduced, carefully. Occurred gradually, then came theft, then violence, then the women, trained, controlled, placed near the camps, not openly, never obvious. Each one playing the same role, creating illusion, building attachment, sparking rivalry. The result? Soldiers turning against each other, trust breaking, discipline collapsing, and it was only the beginning. No one at that moment outside that room understood what was coming. But inside, they knew one thing clearly. They didn't need to defeat the army. They just needed to let it destroy itself. The meeting ended carefully. No one left together. One by one, they disappeared into the night. But one person stayed behind for a moment longer, the woman. She adjusted her veil and walked out with another man, not toward the camp, but toward the city, toward the very place where her target lived, because her role was far from over. And what she would do next would bring the truth dangerously close to being exposed. The night felt calm, almost too calm. Inside his home, he slept deeply, unaware that everything around him was slipping out of his control. And just as before, she moved quietly. Her steps were careful, practiced. This was no longer risk for her. This was routine. She left the house covered in darkness, meeting a shadow, waiting at a distance. Without a word, they walked together, disappearing into the silent street. No one saw them, or so they thought, because this time someone was watching, and what he had seen over the past few nights was no longer something he could ignore. At first, it was just suspicion. A figure leaving the house at unusual hours. A pattern repeating itself. A direction that didn't make sense, but what happened next changed everything. The observer followed from a distance, careful not to be seen. He watched as she entered a house, waited. Time passed. Then, one by one, men began to leave that same place, not together. Separately, carefully. As if hiding something. And finally, she walked out again, with another man. They walked together, then split. She returned home, as if nothing had happened. That moment confirmed it. This was not coincidence. This was operation. The truth was now too dangerous to ignore. The information reached the one man capable of understanding its weight. A man known for precision, discipline, and loyalty. He listened carefully. Every detail, every movement, every pattern. And as the pieces came together, a chilling realization began to form. This wasn't just about one woman. This wasn't just about one man. This was a network, a system, something designed with patience and placed exactly where it could do the most damage. But there was still one question that needed to be answered. Was the man at the center of this a victim or a part of it? No one at that moment understood what was coming, but that question would soon decide everything. He chose not to act immediately, because acting without certainty could destroy everything. Instead, he took a different path. Quiet investigation, controlled observation. He needed proof, and he needed it without alerting anyone. So he sent someone inside the house, not as a spy, but as someone who would never be suspected. A woman, disguised as someone in need, asking for help, moving through the house naturally, observing without raising questions. And what she found changed everything. The woman inside the house was not who she claimed to be. She was new. Recently married, young, beautiful, and completely in control. The first wife unsuspecting, even accepting. That alone was strange. What came next was worse. The house had changed. There was something in the air, something unfamiliar, something that had never been there before. Alcohol. The man known for discipline had begun to drink. Not occasionally, heavily, and every time she left at night, he was unconscious, as if prepared, as if controlled. When this truth was revealed, the weight of it was undeniable. This was not weakness. This was manipulation. The man was not betraying his leader. He was being used. And that made the situation even more dangerous. Because a loyal man under control can cause more damage than an enemy. But what happened next changed everything. The first wife was called. She was told carefully, slowly, what had been discovered. At first she listened in silence, then her expression changed, not with fear, not with doubt, but with something far stronger, resolve. She was not a woman of comfort. She was the daughter of sacrifice, raised with purpose. She did not see this as betrayal of her home. She saw it as a threat to everything she believed in. Her voice was steady, but her words were sharp. If this was true, she said, then she would not hesitate. Even if it meant sacrificing her own family, because to her, faith and truth came before everything. That moment revealed something powerful. The strength that still existed. The strength that the enemy had tried to destroy. But now, the truth was close. Too close. And the next move would decide everything, because exposing this network meant risk, danger, and possibly loss. But ignoring it was no longer an option. The silent war had already begun, not on the battlefield, but within hearts, minds, and trust. And now it was about to surface. If this story made you think, if it pulled you into a moment of real history that still feels alive today, then don't just leave quietly. Tell me in the comments, what do you think was more dangerous in this story? Deception or trust? Like this video if you felt the tension. Share it with someone who values real, powerful history. and subscribe to Islamic Conquest for more stories that go beyond the surface. Because sometimes, the most dangerous battles are the ones no one sees.